Hi, folks. My name is J.M. Erlinson. I'm a transformation engineering lead here at Software AG and a specialist in the ARIS platform. And today we're going through the next series of ARIS videos, The Art of the Possible. Some thoughts on how to best use the ARIS product set with different capabilities and different features to get what you want out of it when you want it. Now, today we're going to be talking about process modeling, and in particular, making the decision on how to model your process, which type of standard process model to use for different types of circumstances. And in particular, that's going to focus on the difference between EPC, or event-driven process chain models, and BPMN models, or business process model and notation. Now, today I'm going to drill through and look at why one might select one or the other type of model to describe different circumstances in the business, and most importantly, to talk to different types of consumer groups. So you can see I'm navigating through my hierarchy from the top to bottom. This will be value-added chains or something similar from a structuring perspective to help contain and structure how the information is decomposed. We'll take a look at that in a future video. But then when I get down to the process level, you'll see that I'm going to be presented with two different options for how I can do my process. BPMN diagram, or in particular, enterprise BPMN collaboration, and EPC. Now let's take a look at what each of these has and what each of these offers. BPMN models tend to be what I call actor-focused. The first question you're going to ask yourself when building a BPMN model, not only is it as a result of the way in which information is structured, it's actually a function of how the model is built. When I start building it, the first question I have to ask is who or which system it does the process, or does that process step. You'll see when I'm actually editing the model, before I can even place a step down, I have to make the decision on what lane it goes into. So by that very nature, the first question I'm answering is, what lanes do I have? Now, of course, you can lay down process boxes without a lane, but the big strength of BPMN, in fact, one of its big selling points, is that swim lanes dictate the demonstration of handoffs between teams. And so, for instance, as I said, I could just place tasks down on the page, but they're sort of arbitrary and abstract. I want to start by placing a lane down. And so by that very nature, it tells me what I'm focused on. What am I capturing? I'm looking to understand handoffs. I'm looking to understand the division of responsibility in a process. And that's incredibly handy, particularly for folks who are in organizational development and learning, and folks who are in IT. People in IT love BPMN model because these lanes can be application systems. And so, for instance, if I have two application system lanes, let's remove this and add an application system lane here. I have two application system lanes, and I have tasks that go sequentially between application system lane to application system lane. I know very quickly that I have an integration that needs to get built. It essentially shows me where I'm going to have to do future IT work to support this kind of process. Well, that's fantastic. That gives me a lot of visibility. However, that is really actor focused. And in being actor focused, you have to first care more about who does it and not necessarily focus as much on the tasks themselves. Note that in BPMN, and in fact, in standard BPMN, there's not a lot of satellites that go around these process steps. We're mostly focused on sort of what happens in one or two auxiliary objects. You can see, like, this is the standard BPMN methodology. You'll notice that most of these things are going to be focused on the main flow of the process, and very little is focused on describing how process steps themselves work. Now, in the newest version of ARIS, or at least at the time of recording of this video, ARIS 10 Service Release 12, we have now added additional satellites, but I'll cover that in a subsequent video. But just to say, the BPMN modeling, by its very nature and design, is going to ask the question who's doing it first, and going to be focused on, and as a result, be able to provide better information, but be restricted through the lens of actor. Conversely, let's take a look at what EPC offers. So EPC models offer something a little bit different. Note that instead of being horizontal and swim lane focused, EPCs can be designed horizontally or vertically, but in this case, we're going to go with vertical as an example. And they're going to be read top to bottom. And we're going to be focused on function or on task. And so that's why I say EPCs are more task focused or function focused. We ask the question, what happens next? And then Around what is happening, we strive to answer the question, show me the context within which these things occur. And so, for instance, I know if I zoom into this model, the first thing that occurs is that the contract is finalized. That's an event that kicks this off. Then we have to check the sales contract, and it's either complete or deficient. Then we have to correct it. Now, note that I can read this process essentially without any sort of organizational allocation. I don't care who does it. I really just care what happens next. This is very handy for communicating with the business or people who are having to execute this process, or people who are trying to describe and walk through the logic of this process, because they're better able to follow the process itself rather than having to always think first who does this. Now, it also is very handy when you've got a frequently shifting organizational structure or responsibility. So, because remember, if I don't like who's doing this process, instead of having to go and move a box from lane to lane and be able to sort of redraw the connections that make sense with it, I can simply delete the person who is responsible for it. So instead of doing this the dealership sales rep, I can simply add a different role in here. And instead of going lane to lane, I'm going to add an accountant to do this job. And it's as simple as that. And so we've got the ability to quickly and easily reallocate these processes across different roles. Now, where does this fall apart a little bit in terms of like what people might want? Well, it's harder to see where the organizational handoffs are. And that's an honest weakness of this methodology, because you have to recognize instantaneously that, oh, this person is named differently than this person, so there must be a handoff between these two. Well, so that can be a little bit harder in terms of eyeballing, which is why we at Software AG have designed ERIS to also support revisualizing processes. Works both with BPMN and EPC. So here is a tech tip of the day. The tech tip of the day is there is a very handy little button at the bottom down here called Change View. Now, Change View allows you to quickly reorient your model to match what you need to see. A perfect example of that is right now I'm looking at this as an EPC, but if I wanted to view this in EPC, what we call row display, which is essentially a swim lane view, I can click over here and say Group by Role. And I select, oh, I want to have the carries out role. So you see it's going to revisualize this based off of the role. And then here we are. See, it's going to redraw it for you. Now, note your model doesn't change. So the design of the model doesn't change in any capacity. Just instead, it revisualizes it for the person who is currently looking at it and no one else. So it's very easy. It's personal. It's for you as you go. So I would encourage you to play around and try these different group bys. You can do things like grouping by system, so you can do that same sort of system-to-system handoff view. And as I said before, this also works on BPMN models. So if you're trying to regroup your BPMN models, going from a role-focused view, which is what we have here, to an IT system-focused view, you can see that it will redraw your swim lanes for you. So that's important. And when selecting EPC or BPMN, you just have to think about what matters most and how you're going to be using it. And that's really important. The only other point to consider is that because BPMN it itself contains an interchange language, so .bpmn, and ERIS, of course, imports and exports .bpmn files at full fidelity. So if I go over here and I wanted to import a BPMN model, you may have to use BPMN models for interchange with external systems. So just in that case, but there is a handy switcher from EPC to BPMN in ERIS Architect. You're able to convert files over prior to synchronizing over with other transactional systems. So don't worry about it. You can still do it if you choose to make all your modeling in EPC. That can be fast and easy, and then push it out to systems that are going to execute the processes as you designed. Well, those are my thoughts. I personally prefer EPC for the majority of my modeling, although I do recognize and use BPMN as necessary. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you like these series. Feel free to leave a comment, share, like it. I'm looking to make lots more of these videos, so you'll see more of the art of the possible with Software AG and with ERIS. Until then, I've been JM, you've been the listener. We'll see you in the next one.